complete, maybe I need to put it that way, are they in favor of economic growth? I think absolutely the majority. But did they understand completely and thoroughly what they were voting for? I do not. Mm-hmm. Are you buying? The first stakes? He does that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kenny, have you considered the fact that our public schools begin with the pledge of allegiance to the United States flag and the pledge to the Texas flag? I thought, my wife asked me why we don't do that, because she starts every day that way at the second grade level. And I thought, I don't know. Maybe I need to ask that question.
Yeah, that's a good. All right, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone and call to order this regular business meeting of the Stephenville City Council here on Tuesday, March 1st, Election Day 2016 at 5:30 p.m. and welcome everyone tonight. We've got a beautiful day outside and hope everybody had a chance to get out and vote and do your duty as a citizen. So welcome everybody tonight for our meeting, and we will begin with citizens' general discussion, which is an opportunity for any citizen to come forward and speak. And I've got one request that's been filed, and I'll ask this time for Ms. Shelby Slauson to come forward.
Mayor, that request is specific to a topic. I didn't know if you wanted to
Okay.
take it up at that time.
I see that now. I see that you've got that in there, so I will wait. I will wait and then see if anyone else wants to come forward just for general discussion items at this time. Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to some great information in our community, a long-standing effort from Tarleton. We've got a couple of students here with us tonight. If I could ask Grant and Lauren to come forward and give us an update on Roundup.
So I'm Lauren Motlock. I'm the graduate assistant at Tarleton State University for the Office of Student Engagement. And this is Mr. Grant Johnson. He's one of our student executive members, and we're here to talk to y'all about Tarleton Roundup. And as y'all know, this is our 18th annual Tarleton Roundup. So this isn't our first rodeo. We just wanted to come talk to y'all about what we have going on this year. Grant's going to tell you about some of our goals, what kind of materials we're picking up this year, and we're excited to have a chance to come talk to y'all again this year. So Grant.
All right, so the roundup this year is going to be on April 2nd. It's a Saturday morning. We're going to do it at 9 a.m. That's when students are going to check in, and then we're going to go out in the community and serve about 9:30, 9:40. So you can go to the next slide, please. So the whole point of Roundup, if y'all know or not, it's just to give back to the community. Tarleton wants to say a big thank you to everybody, and we do that by serving y'all. It's a big time of raking leaves, trimming bushes, pulling weeds, some minor painting. And this year we're doing a waste removal as well as paper shredding. So if you got tires you want to bring up or oil in a closed container, we can we can throw that away for you. Next slide, please. All right. So in previous years we usually operate about $10,000. That encloses our T-shirts. We do a breakfast and lunch for students, as well as any other items like sunglasses or various things like that, as well as we buy tools for everybody. We provide tools, and that's about majority of cost. We average about 80 job sites that we serve, and then we have about 900 students who participate in the previous year. Next slide, please. All right, so right now, this is our inventory. I'm not going to read this off to y'all, but the reason I put this in here is because as a city, I think the biggest way, if y'all would like to support this event at all, is to help us provide with students with tools so that we may perform an actual task. Because right now we're a little low, and the money that we will spend a lot of that on tools and on growing our inventory. Next slide, please. So this year, right now we've been working hard on it. I have right with me today is a job site request form. If anybody in here would like us to come to their house and work, or you say, man, my neighbor's yard really needs it, you can take this and put it in their mailbox and just hint it to them. Say, hey. So I'll leave this with y'all. So if you would like one. And so right now we're doing really good. We had a goal of 1,000 student volunteers, and we're at 1,145. So that's wonderful. It's growing. We have 54 job sites. Our goal is 100. So that's where I need y'all. If you say, man, I got some job sites, that we can definitely use the help. And then right now we have 12 different sponsors. That sponsors is something we definitely need to get up to raise more funds to be able to host this event. And Tarleton does subsidize it to Tarleton Student Engagement Office for what we don't make up. And that's all I have for. So these papers, I don't know where appropriate place to leave these are for. Just on the edge. I'll leave those with you. But thank y'all very much for your time and allowing us to speak over Roundup. And I do have, yes, sir, you have a question?
I have one quick question. Is there a website that people can go to download the form off the internet?
Yes, sir. And Lauren knows more about that than I do.
I don't know if we have the link on here. It's actually on TexanSync, which is a system that Tarleton uses that's kind of like Facebook for student organizations. But we can have the link posted, and you don't have to be a student or have a specific login. You can just pull up the link and get to it. And this year also, Roundup is part of Service Week. Mr. Jeremy had some announcements on that.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I almost forgot about Service Week. I was excited about Roundup. So Roundup, we're kicking off Service Week, and that's a week of Tarleton students serving. So we have a fundraising day where we raise funds for scholarship needs. And then the other big service event is on Thursday, which I believe is the 7th. And that is going to be an academic colleges going out and serving. So this Saturday is the student body just going and serving, and then Thursday is focusing on the colleges performing different tasks. So they have a really neat projects planned that are different than what we typically do at Roundup, which is serving individual homes that need assistance, and they do more city-wide service projects. So Jeremy has more information on that.
Okay. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You stole all my thunder, but not really. Grant has been part of the committee. I've been honored to ask to be on that committee for the Texas Team Up for the week of service. Grant is on that committee as well. Tarleton's been doing that Roundup for 18 years, and I think Tarleton's kind of taken it to another level by adding the Philanthropy Day and adding the Service Day. Part of some of the projects that the city will be participating with that, either through Roundup or Service Day, so I don't have them separated here, but we're going to do some graffiti removal underneath the Washington Street Bridge. And the idea of Service Week is to kind of team up a department or college with a specific task that's going to be happening on that day. So in this particular case, Roundup will come through and paint the graffiti, and then the art class, the art department is going to come through and try to paint a mural underneath the Washington Street Bridge. And they're also going to do a mural down at the park by like McCleskey Field where the softball girls are painting honeybee. So that would be kind of neat. We got the horticulture department in class. They're going to help pull weeds out of some of the medians and plant some flowers and try to really spice those up a little bit. That may be more than just a day project if you've seen some of the medians. So we really are going to try to clean those things up a little bit. We're going to do some trail cleanup. We're also doing some classes with the library and senior center to teach either social media or some Excel classes for the seniors and for the library patrons that come. And so Tarleton's actually come over and shuttle those folks over to Tarleton so we can utilize their computer labs and things like that. The ROTC is going to help with some of our historic bricks and actually get those things back up into a condition we can use them, help stack them. So that'll be a huge asset that we typically don't have the manpower for any of these tasks, especially that one. So I think it's a great project. I know I was here for Roundup last year, and I didn't know the full extent of what they did, but they do amazing things, and I think Service Week is just going to take it to a whole nother level. So the whole week is going to be a great thing. Just teach these kids or the students about giving back to the community, but it also help those organizations looking for help. So.
All right, any questions for Jeremy?
Jeremy, I know that, I think I heard Grant mention the fact that tire disposal would be available. Did I understand that?
Yes, sir. That's going to be on that Saturday, the April 2nd. We'll have, if you come to the west side of Memorial Stadium, with your tires or oil, if you want, in a closed container, we can dispose of that.
Okay, and that was gonna be my question, if there was a drop-off point where people could bring that, so y'all didn't have to come to their house specifically to take care of that, but it will be on the west side of the Tarleton Stadium then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else for Jeremy? All right, thank you very much. I don't want us to miss the significance of what was just said. Tarleton is not having class on April 7th. Every student that attends Tarleton at the Stephenville campus is going to be engaged somewhere in our community giving back. So thank you, Tarleton, for that. And Jeremy, for the city, Pat, getting with Tarleton and making the connection so that we can get some work done, like Jeremy said, that we might not ordinarily see happen in our community. And so this is the first year, and I know it's going to grow even more. And so it's a great partnership between Tarleton and the community. So thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda, some financial reporting, and Walter has that for us, and I'll let you introduce the topic, and we'll go to our comprehensive annual financial report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to present Lewis Crane of Rutledge and Crane auditors. He conducted our audit. This is the third year that he's conducted the audit, and I'd like to present Lewis Crane to give the results of the audit.
Okay, Mr. Crane.
Mayor, members of the City Council, citizens, it's always a pleasure to be here. I have a neighbor who has a neighbor who needs to get his yard cleaned up. So they'll travel to Arlington. I'd sure like to put in one of those papers. I'm just frankly fascinated. I saw it for the first time last year. They were speaking when I was here, and that is a great program. Well, getting on to your financial statements, you had a very good year. You added about $1 million, 900-something thousand to your general fund reserves. That's a good year. You also added a considerable amount to your water and sewer fund, and even on the full accrual basis, you were able to increase. Now, offsetting that, this year we had to implement what's called Governmental Accounting Standards Board number 68. We've talked about it in the past. It's been coming. Well, now it's here. This came about because of the various bankruptcies that over the last 15 years, cities were going bankrupt because of their pension plans. So they put their heads together in Connecticut and decided that we would all start booking the liability for the pension plan in our financial statements, just like we would a bond payable or any other liability. It's not something new in that you've always had that liability, but now it has to be recognized on your financial statement. Now, what this does, it changed up your retirement footnote, and I just want to, first of all, I'll tell you the total is $3,722,000 approximately. That is a new liability on your financials. If you'll go with me over to page 42, if you have your financial statement, you can see the first of 6 pages of footnotes we have to write now describing this. And it is, if you think it's tedious listening to it, sitting down trying to write it is tedious also. We get 2 actuarial reports, and then we get a report from a national CPA firm that audits the service center that calculates this. Now, if you go over with me to one other place, I want to be sure you see in your reports, page 54 and 55. Those are 2 schedules that detail the information that's included in your actuarial evaluation. I'm afraid I'm going to get too far into the weeds if I go on with it, but I do want to tell you this. It's not going to look like what you had in the past. And the reason is they've changed the way they're doing the valuation. They value it as of 12/31, December 31st, but because different cities have different year ends, any amount you put into your pension after January the 1st is basically shown as a prepaid. It's called a deferred resource outflow. It's saying we spent this money, but we're not going to recognize it as an expense until next year. And of course, after a year or two of this, it cancels itself out. But it is a large change. Someone asked me at another one of these presentations, should we go ahead and pay it down? And I don't know, that's up to the council. If I were sitting in the council's position, it'd be absolutely not, because it's a moving target. It will change if an employee leaves. It will change if unfortunately an employee passed away. It will change based on interest rates, how much you can earn on your investments, and which direction the wind is blowing. So it is a constant moving target, and you're safe as long as you make those contributions that you're instructed by your pension, or by TMRS. I'm working on the county. I drove in from East Texas, and I almost said TCDRS, so I have to, same thing except for counties. So the effect, if you want to see it succinctly in one place, if you look at one last thing with me on page 18 and 19. At the bottom of the page, this is the funny looking statement that shows the full accrual basis for the city. You had a prior period adjustment of 2.8 million, which is the total that it was in the prior year. You don't restate the prior year, but you do take that beginning balance and shove it back so it doesn't affect your current year operation. Now, at the end of the year, your pension liability is actually a little less. So you picked it up. And I know interest rates weren't up. I have one of the council members ask me that question. And not being an actuary, I can't explain the calculations to you, other than once we get it from the actuaries, we have to massage it a bit. But hopefully this will solve some of the problems across the United States that we've had in cities getting into trouble and people claiming they didn't know about it, or citizens saying we should have known about it, because it's all out there to see now. Now, I've talked too long, but I'd like to address any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions? Doug?
Obviously, the most important question is did you find this to be an uneventful audit, meaning unqualified?
Yes, it's an unqualified opinion. You have the certificate of achievement from the Governmental Finance Officers Association, and I've been a reviewer there since 1986. I can't review Texas statements, but I review them from around the country. So in order to get that award, you have to meet the highest standards, which you did for last year. It's always a year lag, and I feel confident this will do the same. They're going to be looking at the implementation of GASB 68 this year, but you met every other standard, and it's also something the rating agents look at is, do you have that certificate? And Stephenville has had it for a long time.
You made a comment to me earlier about you wish that some of your other clients had similar type audit results. Would you just comment quickly about that again?
Knowing no one here has my client list, yes. Some people, occasionally you'll run across a group that doesn't take a really conservative view of finances, and which is fine as long as you're growing. And that's one of the problems we have in the Metroplex, is we grow so fast you can't do anything wrong, because you know the growth will solve the problem. Except when it stops growing, it doesn't solve the problem. And after that, you have to manage it. And I had one client a number of years ago that actually got within a close amount of going into a deficit in their general fund, which means they owed more than they had to pay it back. And so after that, the mayor would ask me, how are we doing this year? And I said, this year I have a warm, fuzzy feeling in the pit of my stomach, because you're showing improvement. And over a period of 3 to 5 years, they got back where they were at a reasonable basis. Well, the city of Stephenville is always being conservative that way. I know in the past, we audited you 10 years ago, I believe it was, when you were building up money because of the water right problem we had. And every time I've been near the city of Stephenville, it's just been conservative. So you have some play if you do get into trouble. And I have a fear we're all going to be in trouble in the next few years if we don't get interest rates up where we can earn some money, or if we have a slowdown in business. There are a lot of things that are conflicting. You're in decent shape.
I just want to make a comment about the issue of the unfunded liability and the retirement plan. From my recollection, and Walt may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, part of the main issue there is that we went to a 2-to-1 retirement contribution from city versus the employee, and yet we didn't fund it that way for a while. And because of that, we got upside down basically in our retirement, which means you said in your audit is $3.7 million.
Yes.
So what we've been doing is instead of paying 2-to-1, we've been paying about, which is 12% our contributions. I believe that number's been around 15% to help pay that number down. So we've been prepaid on our debt rather than some cities, letting it sit there as a liability. I think that in the fire department alone in Fort Worth, it's over $1 billion underfunded right now, the word I heard. And so they're looking at having to redo their entire retirement plan because of things such as how you vest, when you vest, highest 3 years average versus 2, et cetera. So there's some major things. And so I just want to say thanks to Walt, particularly. Walt's kind of the guy that sits behind he's looked at as a bean counter, which he does a really good job of bean counting. I appreciate that. And I want to say thank you to Walt for what he does with our audits.
I think I used another term when I was talking to you about him.
Well, the word crusty does come to mind a few times. Like I said, though, every time he wants to be crusty with me, he has permission first.
Well, he doesn't work for me, so he can certainly butt heads with me. But
I
understand
appreciate
that.
your audit and also, Walt, the work you do.
And I would like to say, we appreciate that you take it so seriously because, again, there are places where they don't take it seriously and they can just lead you into trouble. I try to remember everybody, even when we're in the midst of arguing about all this, are on the same team. And we need to remember that as we try to move forward. Did anyone else have a question for me?
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
Is that the action we need, Walt, to accept his audit this time? Yes, sir. Okay. I so move that we accept the financial audit produced by Lewis Crane and Rutledge Crane and Company, P.C.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Savine, seconded by Mr. McClendon to accept the annual financial report as presented. Any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that motion carries. Unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz.
All
Thank
right.
you very much for your hospitality.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a Planning and Development Committee report, and I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Warren. So, Jerry?
I suppose that there's a representative here from Friesen Nichols to give us an update.
Members of council, there is not a representative this evening. Basically, what was in your report is that Friesen Nichols did report to the Planning and Development Committee of what our findings were from the open house we held about 3 weeks ago. And since then, at that meeting, members of council and the mayor suggested perhaps Noah Cullis, as the Director of Planning and Building Services, should meet with the county commissioners regarding the loop and whatnot. We have since met with Friesen Nichols, and we did meet collectively with 3 of the commissioners and the county judge. And what our plan is to meet with the individual county commissioners in their district regarding that loop, and we're in the midst of that discussion at this time.
Any questions or?
Any questions from the council? Okay.
Concluded.
Thank you.
Well, Jerry, if you don't mind, I would like to reiterate the point I tried to make that night, that I think the council I know the council agreed with the point because it was the second half of the task, and that is to look at, the thoroughfare plan involves an update to streets that are inside the city limits. And the desire of the council is for those streets to be defined first, because we have a pavement plan that is being implemented, and we need to make sure that the streets that we repair are in concert with the street size that would be dictated by the thoroughfare plan. So, is that tracking
Yes.
with you, Jerry? Okay,
That is correct.
okay,
I'll just run out and
okay, thank you. So Jerry, you got anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Great, then we'll move on to the Public Works Committee report, and Mr. Nix, Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works Committee met, and we had several items on our agenda, and I'm going to work through these as quickly as possible, Mr. Salim. Our pavement management strategy was the first issue that we discussed, and Nick and the Public Works Department have several streets that they plan to begin the preparation on, and then begin the treatment of some of the streets with various methods and means to preserve the existing condition of the streets. It was our thought and recommendation and agreement with the Public Works Department that it would be wise for us to spend a significant amount of our resources, at least initially, to preserve some of the streets that have not deteriorated to the point where they will require major reconstruction. And so, at least initially, we're going to try to maintain what we have and not lose any ground on these streets. And at the same time, I know that Mr. Williams and the Public Works Department are working on some streets that are more distressed, and they intend to use in-house labor and materials as much as possible, and contract out where necessary to do the repairs on these streets, and have already begun that with a couple of areas around town, I believe. I don't have any specific report to make on that, except they continue to work in the planning and in the organization of that, and will continue to work and move forward with those streets as they have the opportunity and weather permits to do so. There was no action or no recommendation from the committee taken on that. The second item was the Vanderbilt Street reconstruction, and I may not be completely qualified, but I'll give you the cliff notes for it. Tarleton is planning to do some major renovations in and around their campus. Part of the renovations includes the reconstruction of what is indeed a city street, Vanderbilt Street. They plan to relocate utilities to underground utilities, the overhead service for electricity and other things. They also intend, while they're doing the reconstruction of the streets, to replace and update and upgrade the sanitary sewer, water, and storm sewer drainage at the same time. They have a significant budget that they intend to work with, and these projects, I believe, are out for bid right now, scheduled to be opened later in this month. They came to the city and asked us to participate as I hate to use the word partner, because partnership indicates a match, but it is a working agreement with them to help with some of the cost for the street replacement that they are going to do, the street repair, maybe I should say it that way. They had estimated that their cost was going to be around $250,000 to do the repair on the street. They asked us if we would be willing to partner with them in this and help, and instead of just doing a patch, to do a complete repavement of that section of the street. And my mind from Kane to Ollie on Vanderbilt Street. And based on the discussion in the committee that night, and based on the information that we had gathered from Tarleton, we requested them to provide a memorandum of understanding to us that would indicate that participation of the city. That went out this afternoon via email. That's not very much notice, and I recognize that. It would be my preference to deal with issues of this significance and this size and have a little bit more time for us to digest it. However, I support the project, and I support the fact that we have the opportunity tonight to approve the memorandum of understanding. I'll leave that to the discretion of the council, but in short, it requires us to commit to an investment of no more than $253,000 as a part of the Tarleton project for our portion of the street repair and rebuilding of that street. The utility replacement that Tarleton proposes to do will be done at 100% Tarleton cost. The city will not pay for that. This is just for the street reconstruction, and we have requested that they do concrete rather than asphalt because of the durability, the lack of maintenance, and the other aesthetic appeal of the concrete over just an asphalt street. It will be a curb and gutter. It will have the storm drainage included, which to me makes it a complete package. The committee requested that. Tarleton provided it. If Nick wants to answer questions about that memorandum or if Pat has comments on that, I'll certainly defer to them in that department, or if I can answer a question, I'd be glad to.
Okay, any questions from the council about what Alan's gone through?
Did you ever get any kind of estimate from them? They had talked about maybe just a ballpark estimate on what the utility infrastructure that they were gonna replace was? Okay. Okay, but you will get that. Okay, thank you.
What's the ballpark? We're talking about a couple $1 million, aren't we? I mean, right, the utilities and the street.
For water and sewer, it's a couple $100,000.
Okay, and then for because I guess this is a smaller part of about a $16 million project, is the way that they described it.
Yes, sir.
And so, that's why you said 66 pages. This is a small part of a $16 million project.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is infrastructure upgrade, and the other scope of the project. Okay. Any other questions?
Have you seen the memorandum?
I got it this afternoon.
I mean, is it clear to you? Do you have any issues with it? Good enough.
How long is it? Memorandum?
2 pages.
Okay.
Did you get a copy of it? It went out via email this afternoon.
Whether I got it or not, I don't know. But
Okay,
I just,
and-
you know, from what I remember from this discussion, I thought it sounded really good. I'm a little reluctant to, you know, unless there's some big hurry to, you know, agree to something without reading it. I mean, if it needs to be done, you know, but is there some urgency about doing it real soon?
There's not an emergency that I'm aware of, and Tarleton is supposed to have their bids back later this month to open. It is a possibility, in my mind at least, Boyd, that we could take formal action on this at the next regular council meeting and still not create any problems for the city or for Tarleton.
From what I saw, it sounded like a good deal to me. When you start signing stuff.
I think it's a good investment for
Yeah.
the city, and I think the city would be wise to participate with Tarleton. But at the same time, I think we as stewards should be cautious when we make agreements to expend resources on a project. And we've not seen the bids yet, and neither has Tarleton.
Let me add something here that eased my mind about your concerns. There's a statement in the middle of the memorandum that says it's not a contract, not a binding contract on you. So it's just what it says it is in that memorandum of understanding. So if you approve this, then I don't think you're binding yourself to any kind of contract. It's a framework to me, just a framework of what you may agree to.
Well, and it indicates, in my mind, to Tarleton our intent to participate with them, but does not legally bind us to that, if I understand it correctly.
No, that's correct.
That helps me a lot. I know you hadn't had time to really read it, but does it look okay to you?
I think it's adequate. Yes.
Okay, well, if it's not binding, that's all right.
It's not binding.
So we can vote on it tonight then?
I think you can vote on this and you're not bound by any
Or
contract.
you wanna wait?
You're okay with that?
I'm ambidextrous.
You're what?
He's
I'm
ambidextrous.
ambidextrous.
Let me try to help the discussion here. just to clarify, there's two things in the MOU, which I have read, that are, I think, of interest to the council. One is Tarleton is committing to use their contract and do the work as a part of the larger contract. And then this a single sentence that the city has: the city of Stephenville declares a preference for the concrete option, but also provides notification that the participation by the city will be capped at $253,167, regardless of bid results. So that goes back to what the committee decided the other night, that, you know, we're gonna state a preference of concrete. We realize that asphalt is a bid alternate, but we're not gonna pay any more than we've committed to. If there's a cost overrun, Tarleton's gonna bear the brunt of that, going forward. And so it's not a contract, but it's spelling out in words, what we talked about, so it's more than just a verbal agreement.
Correct. Which is what we asked Tarleton to provide.
Right.
As we requested, they have provided that.
Right.
And Mayor, I have no problem if the desire of the council is to approve this memorandum tonight. I have no problem with that. And we can move forward with that and be willing to look at the bids when Tarleton provides them this portion of their bids to us.
Okay.
And then take formal action if necessary at a later meeting.
Okay. Well, then, we'll proceed then with a motion from the committee then.
Mayor, I move that we accept the memorandum of understanding that Tarleton has provided for the city's participation in the reconstruction of Vanderbilt Street from Kane to Ollie.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nix, seconded by Mr. McDaniel, that we accept the conditions of the MOU and proceed with the reconstruction of Vanderbilt as presented in our agenda packet. Any discussion? Proceed to vote then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A unanimous vote. That motion carries as presented.
Last item on our agenda, Mayor, was the College Street Bridge repair, and maybe a bit of history. When we determined based on inspection that bridge was not safe, it was closed, has been closed for some time. We looked at several options, one of which was complete demolition and replacement. Several of others were repair and or trying to salvage what was there. It came to our attention that there is a project that Delta Structural Technology does, and to basically rehab that using some technology that some of us weren't aware of at the time. But it was the desire and the consensus of the committee that project move ahead. It has moved ahead. They have begun the work on that bridge now, and hopefully they should be done with that in another couple of weeks. I think they gave a three-week time period for being able to complete that, and they've been on it approximately a week now. They have begun the work with some sandblasting and with some coating and with some other things that are in preliminary to them putting on the fiber that they put on that, and it will be a permanent repair for that structure once they get done. There was no action by the committee except to acknowledge the fact that our Public Works Department went above and beyond to find an alternative source of repair and or contractor for this to be able to save the taxpayer a significant amount of money and provide that street be reopened as quickly as possible. And there was no action or no recommendation on that particular item, Mayor. Unless there's questions on that, that would conclude my report.
Okay, anything else for Alan?
Strickle Rollins did reduce their fee as well.
Yes, they reduced their fee from the original estimate for the demolition and construction down to, I want to say 6,000.
I believe that's correct, 35 to 6.
Yes, 35,000 to 6,000, based on their reduced workload and reduced requirements for this specific repair.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I want to just stop and personally thank Mr. Nix, Mr. Harrison, Nick Williams. 6 months ago, the council was looking at over $300,000 to fix this bridge. And I think this is reflective of not only what we heard earlier in the financial report about this community kind of priding itself in being smart with the citizens' money. And there were some hard questions asked, and I'll be honest with you, there were some ruffled feathers by some engineers about, hey, I've got the answer, and we said, we don't know that we want to pay for that answer. Go ask and find us something else. And they struck out and did that. And, you know, I want to thank all three of you for the work you did, because we're looking at saving over, $250,000 plus is what was saved in that effort. And that's just rolling up our sleeves and asking some questions and working through stuff versus just saying, well, there it is, let's just take care of it. And so I just want to thank y'all for that and commend you for the work on that. And the council as a whole has asked some good questions. And Mark, I know you at the committee last week making sure that, hey, is this too good to be true? And no, there's the engineering to back it up. And so that was good as well. So thank y'all. All right, now we'll move to the Finance Committee report. And we got Mr. Savine. We've got a topic tonight that I know a lot of people are in the audience to hear and to talk about, which is to consider approval of a Chapter 380 agreement. And I just wanted to take a moment and say a couple of things about how we got to this point, because the city of Stephenville is open for business. This city council has worked with our community leaders, STEDCO, the Chamber of Commerce, CETA, to do many things in the last few months to facilitate economic development in our community. Now, I want to be very clear about what economic development is, because it is really important, before I say anything else, for us to be on the same page with this. It's growing our economy. It's more dollars in Stephenville, Texas, for us to take care of ourselves and to enjoy the life that we have in our community. There's only two ways that you can grow the economy. Only two. You can bring new dollars, or you can keep the dollars you have. It's that simple. You attract dollars or you retain dollars. We have tonight an opportunity to do both. And you might say, well, how can you do both? Well, we have a recent report that has told this council that there are $16 million of restaurant dollars that are leaving the citizens of Stephenville's pockets and being spent in places like Granbury. So what does Granbury do with that money? Well, I don't know for sure, but I know that we've got some streets in Stephenville that could sure use that money. But it's in Granbury's revenue stream for their sales tax, for their city council, to spend $1 that was earned at FMC Technologies by a worker that may live on Belknap Street that is fixing the street in Granbury. That's a real problem for us, and I think what we as a council need to do is lead. There's a lot of stray discussion about what on earth is going on. There's one thing going on in this community, and that is an intense desire for us to grow our economy, to take care of this community, to take care of the streets that we have, to provide opportunities for citizens to do things that they do not exist today. The surveys talked about a grocery store. It talked about more places to eat. It didn't talk about other things other than us just enjoying the community. And so it's not changing who we are. Let's don't be afraid of economic development. Let's embrace economic development as a way to enjoy our life together better. This council needs to lead. End, period, dot. Now, we've got an economic development policy that reads like we don't want any business in Stephenville. If you read it, I mean, I've read it and I'm like, what is this policy really intended to do? And a few weeks ago, we had a corporation come to us, and I see them here tonight, and I welcome you and thank you for being here again. Because I told you the first night I saw you that we as a community are learning how to date. We are learning. Well, we have an economic development policy that doesn't even address the proposal that was brought before us. That is a sales tax incentive for a business to attract and retain dollars in our community. An incentive, it's a business-based approach to economic development. What does that mean? That means that we don't spend $1 of property tax. We don't commit a single dollar that has been taken from a citizen of Stephenville to incentivize this deal. No, this deal is incentivized by this company whether it performs or not. Because you see, if they don't perform, they don't get a penny. That's an incentive performance-based deal. So we as a community, and I think God's at work here because we couldn't have found this on our own. We didn't even know about it. But it's right here for us. It is a no risk because today there's the building that's being considered that is gathering zero tax dollars, sales tax for our community. It's been vacant for several years. Okay? So that's really important. Now, the other part of this is we, the city, are requiring an investment of $500,000. That's capital investment that's going to raise the property value, so we benefit not only from property values increasing with an increased property value, but we also are requiring of them 20, please listen, full-time equivalents. That's not people, that's 20 times 1,920 hours. It's $38,000 of labor. It's a payroll of over $800,000 that doesn't exist in our community today. What's that doing? That is increasing dollars in our economy. So it's an incentive-based deal. The sales tax is earned. There is no property tax involved in this deal. None. Now, if you read our incentive package, all it does is talking about property tax. That's why we've got a policy that's got this huge hole in it. And I want to applaud the council for working through a policy issue at the same time of trying to work an incentive at the same time. Because we don't have, why do we have policies? We have policies to provide consistent application of rules. And I think what I want to propose to the council tonight is that we've got a deal before us that has shown us what half a policy looks like. Because it's a policy that deals with an attracting a company to come to Stephenville, but it does not address businesses that are already in Stephenville. And I think the policy can be written, and I would like to ask the council's concurrence for the Finance Committee for us to, from tonight, create a policy that allows new businesses and existing businesses to participate in this. Both of them participate. But here's an added element to this that I want to introduce, and that is that if you've been in Stephenville, if you're already here, you ought to get an advantage in this scenario, so that maybe instead of requiring $500,000 and 20 jobs, maybe it's $250,000 and 10 jobs. There's some difference there to recognize that we understand that you've already committed to be here, but we want to incentivize you to do something that spruces up your establishment, that the guy going hunting out in San Angelo this November that has a decision about whether to stop in Stephenville and eat or go to Granbury and eat says, you know what, I'm going to stop in Stephenville. And so it levels the playing field for there to be an incentive for both new business attraction and current business retention. Today our policy does not address that. It needs to. We are learning, and I think what I want to congratulate is the council's willingness to work through this issue together. And I want to thank the company that has asked for the incentive for your willingness to bear with us as we work through this. Because at the end of the day, I personally don't think this is really about the money. I think it's about the relationship, and it's about us saying that we are committed to not only new businesses that may be able to come here to fill a void, but we're committed to existing businesses likewise. And we're willing to provide incentives to you in a manner that is performance-based and incentive-driven. And so I want to thank us for coming to this point. Stephenville is open for business. The things that we are considering to develop and grow our economy are not only good for that, but it's good for us to be able to provide city services, and it's also good for the citizens. And I thank y'all for the opportunity to make those comments as we came into this. And at this point, I will be reminded that I have a request for a citizen's input on this. And so, Ms. Slauson, if you'd like to come forward.
I would. Thank you, Mayor. Part of what I wanted to address before the council is something that you already mentioned, and that's the data that CETA is operating from. Now, I'm here tonight. I am one of your directors on the CETA board, but I'm not formally representing CETA. This was not an issue that was before us, so we have not addressed it or taken any formal action on it. However, we do have some information that's relevant to what you're trying to decide. And that data that you are referring to about the $16 million is in the Economic Development Action Plan that the council had prepared for us, kind of as our playbook that we are using. I do have copies of that here if any of you are not familiar with that already. In that, the retail market analysis addressed that $16 million leakage in the restaurant and bars category that's leaving Stephenville. One thing that's not factored in there, that study is based off of our census population of 17,000, and Tarleton's report to me today about their current academic enrollment is that there's 8,500 students there that I don't think is reflected in this data that we're working off of. So that leakage may actually be even more significant than is reported here. Another thing in that report is...
Shelby, just a second, let me interrupt because, Pat, let me get you to update the council on what the current demographic numbers are that you're working with to update that census number.
We're anticipating we're anticipating a population when the COG report comes out in April or May to put our population somewhere around 21,500 to 22,000 people, and that does include Tarleton students.
Okay. All right. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Another thing I would point out about that data sheet there is that it shows a grocery surplus to us of about $73 million. And I think experience tells us all as we go into our stores that that's not actually the case. So I suspect that the leakage is underreported in several different areas there as we go through that study. As test cases go, this restaurant incentive is highly informative to us because we're dealing with a category that's got some documented leakage. We're dealing with an incentive that is a consumer-driven incentive, just like the mayor talked about, that before a single dollar of a sales tax is refunded to them, they've already invested in us an additional $500,000 in capital upgrades to a building, and that's going to realize around $11,000 in additional ad valorem taxes to us spread out across all of our ISD and our ERAF County, and I think to the city that's an additional $2,400 or so of additional property tax revenue over what's already out there right now. As a part of the bigger picture, you know, CETA's got some categorical things that we're looking for. We want to see the industry and we want to see manufacturing and we all want to see a grocery store. And I think that most of us kind of believe that those things will progress in that order. After the industry and manufacturing come, then will come grocery opportunity, then will come additional retail and restaurant opportunities. But what happened was retail came knocking first. And we have either got to be committed to competing in the environment that we're in now, or we've got to be satisfied with the status quo. And those other categories, it's really important for us to realize that they're already watching us right now. And there are already opportunities that are evaluating us, opportunities that I think some of you consider to be higher priority than this particular one perhaps. And we don't want to scare off those opportunities by the way that we handle this one. Your CETA board is watching you too. How you handle this is very informative to us on how you expect us to handle the things that come before us in the next year. You've given us this great playbook, this action plan that has all this data about what our citizens want, where our gaps are, and how to initiate some activity that will address those things. We've got 77%, I think is what it was, that the voters approved the creation of CETA last May, telling us they're ready for us to suit up and get out on the field and be competitive. And then somebody has passed us the ball, and we don't know exactly what to do with it. And we're kind of all scrambling around in the meantime. And there is a very unfortunate chance that we may end up running that ball into Roanoke's end zone. To Hofbrau, I would hope, to Highway 377, I would hope that if you don't take anything else from this, I hope that you know our people want you here. We really do. And this debate that we've got going on isn't about you, but it is illustrative of a bigger reason why I think that you should choose us, and why I think that we're a good fit, and that's that when these businesses invest in us, they become treasured by us. And we've got a little bit of an internal conflict because we're concerned that even though the demands are greater than our supply right here, it may be offensive to make this deal when some of our other business owners aren't getting that same thing. And we don't want to offend them, and we don't want to lose them either. But I can tell you that once you come here and open up, we're going to feel the same way about you too. We will want you here just as much them. But we can't just hang an open sign out in the window and start telling everybody Stephenville is open for business. We have to actually be open for business. And when somebody walks through the door, we've got to be ready. We can't scramble around and squabble and dissect a deal until it runs away from us. And if we're not ready, then we've got to very graciously let them know we really do want to do business with them, but we're just not ready yet. From a business perspective, this is a good deal. This is a good deal for the city of Stephenville. Politically, it's not an easy decision, and philosophically, it's a little bit difficult to get over that hurdle. As a small business owner in the community with clients who are not in favor of this particular incentive, it's not an easy thing to stand up here and speak in favor of it, but somebody has to, and I think each of you need to hear other voices than just those of dissent. Because if you intend for us on the CETA board, in any real sense, to take any action at all on this action plan, then it has to start right here with all of you. And it starts by being honest with ourselves and saying to our neighbors and their businesses that we love, that who feel in some ways slighted by this, that this is not about doing less business with them. It's about doing more business in Stephenville, and we're either open or we're not. And I'm quite sure I've gone over my allotted time, and I really appreciate you allowing me to say my piece.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Shelby, if you would, you mentioned, you made reference to the data that y'all had collected.
Yes.
How much of that data was placed on retail aspect? And I'll tell you why. As we've discussed this, and a lot of the formation of CETA, I think that the community, there's some mixed emotions on really what they were voting for, as far as, everyone wants to bag the elephant and get the manufacturer and that type of thing. And especially since I've been here, I realize that is going to be a difficult task. That's probably something that we're looking at, 4 or 5 years down the road, unless we, happen to luck out. What is the response on the retail side as far as the demand, the importance of the retail?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking.
Well,
If
I'm
you're talking about the
asking you-
community surveys,
I'm asking about the community surveys.
there are responsive answers in there in the back of the book, if you've seen those. There's not percentages,
Right.
but there are narrative answers about the things that different community members want. And there's a mixture. There's a mixture of we need better jobs, we need better benefits, we need better wages. And then there's plenty of commentary about I want a Red Lobster or things of that nature. So I don't think that there's anything in here that says 400 votes restaurants should be our
Right,
highest priority.
but you
Yes.
have a general consensus based on what, and I remember looking at that data,
Mhm.
and a lot of comments about grocery stores,
Yes.
extra restaurant here and there, and that type of thing. But then again, that's not necessarily the manufacturing side, and I do think there's a lot of citizens that believe that was what they were voting for on Prop 1. I know whenever I was knocking plenty of doors, that was really, that comment came up a considerable amount.
Well, from that data, they took that and they created some strategic initiatives in here. And among those strategic initiatives are expanding and retaining existing businesses. There is the search for additional, attracting some more of the businesses of the manufacturing and industrial nature. There is a category for quality of life, kind of things like different retail, restaurants, even a potential youth or event type center is addressed in there as well, but that's not as high on the strategic initiative as the other items are. So I'm not sure that I'm answering your question, but
You're
I'm not
answering
sure
my-
that
you are
I'm understanding
answering
it
my
either.
question.
If it's a matter of priority that you're asking about, then I think we're agreeing here that the priorities we draw from this is that what people primarily are wanting to see are better income opportunities, followed by better opportunities for discretionary spending and enjoying their life and the fruits of their labor.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Shelby? I just want to make one quick comment to what you brought up, Red, about 4 or 5 years away. And then Shelby, your comment about people are watching. I want to confirm tonight that it was less than 2 weeks ago that I was in the room with the president of the Chamber of Commerce and Stedco and CETA with a manufacturer that is looking at a building in Stephenville. And they're talking about a lot of jobs, and they're talking about occupying a pretty big building that's been vacant for a long time. And so for us to say that there's no influence between these, I think is a fallacy, and we just got to keep everything in play. And people are looking because we have an extremely lucrative workforce here and an engine with Ranger College and Tarleton that is an envy of communities our size. And so that we have advantages. We just are in the process of letting people know that we're willing to take that opportunity. So just wanted to mention that. Okay, Mr. Sabine.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We have 4 agenda items. We've started the discussion of agenda item A, which is a request by Highway 377 LLC, otherwise known as Hofbrau. I'll put y'all together. They've requested a Chapter 380 sales tax rebate. There has been, this process started several months ago, and because of some of our lack of knowledge of process, we made a recommendation that had to be rescinded or was considered invalid. And so we came back with another request. They came back with another request. From that one, Sherry Zachary was able, made a recommendation that we cap the sales tax, the amount of revenue that they can get from sales tax rebate to the gross sales of $2.2 million. They were in agreement with that. Red Harrison also made the recommendation that we, instead of being a 10-year agreement, they become a 7-year agreement, and they've agreed to that as well. So we have a proposal before us that has been recommended by committee to be brought to the City Council for full vote on the agreement. I think it's actually, there is an agreement in your packet, which is a Chapter 380 Economic Development Program Agreement. And you can see some of the details there. If you have any questions, we can answer those. Pat is the one who has been negotiating this. Do you actually have the resolution? Okay, where's the resolution? I guess if I looked at my packet that you left up here. We have a resolution 2016-R05, where the City of Stephenville approves a Chapter 380 Economic Development Program and agreement with Highway 377 LLC, providing a severability clause and providing for an effective date. Has been what has been brought to the council tonight for consideration.
Okay, so you want to present the resolution in the form of a motion from the committee then?
And I have someone on the council that would like to do that.
Okay,
Mayor, I move approval of resolution, excuse me, resolution number 2016 R05, pending further discussion.
Second.
it's been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Ms. Zachary to approve Resolution 26R05, resolution of the City Council approving Chapter 380 Economic Development Program and agreement with Highway 377 LLC and providing severability clause and providing for an effective date. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Wagner?
First, I want to say that this, as far as I'm concerned, this hearing is not about whether the Hofbrau Group is welcome to come here. I hope they do come here. I've told them that from the very beginning. I think it'd be nice to have them here. So it's not about whether we want them to come here. It's a question of whether it's appropriate to give this tax incentive or not. And I have given two reasons why I thought it wasn't. And one of them is because I just don't think it's necessary. The Hofbrau Investment Land Company signed a contract about a month ago to take over that building out there. And I haven't seen a contract. I asked to see it and haven't been allowed to see it. But I asked if it had any opt-out clause. And that contract was signed by both sides, Fiddle Creek owner, and then on January 28th, filed in the county clerk's office on February 10th. And I asked to see a copy of it and didn't see it. And was advised that there were no opt-out clauses in it. In other words, they're coming. Now, it may be subject to them having an agreement with Restaurant 377, you know, but the Hofbrau entity has a contract, as far as I know, is binding, no opt-out. So if that is true from a business point of view for the city of Stephenville, and you know, this is not a lot of money, depending on how you look at it. They say they're going to make $22 million a year at least, and maybe $30 million a year.
2.2.
Excuse me, 2 years, yeah.
I hope y'all do.
Wow.
Yeah, well, 10 years would be 30 million, and then 20 years would be 60 million. And it's just about $100,000 and something. Well, you know, when we had that first meeting on December the 14th, we were all sitting there, and I asked for they were making. Let me say, I like these guys. I've been in, it's been a long time since I've been in the one in Dallas up there, and I know some of the local guys and the semi-local guys, and I like them all. But this is a city financial question. And since they've already signed the contract, and they think they're going to make $22 million in the next 10 years, it doesn't make sense to me they let it fall apart for a $120,000 tax incentive over 10 years. And second thing is that, you know, what I call the fairness question, you know, in these rules that the city adopted, 95 and revised 96, 2000, 2005, 2010, it says that before we can consider an incentive, we have to make sure it does not give unfair competitive advantages for one business over another local business. Well, you know, I'm all for the free enterprise system, you know, businesses competing against each other. When a government starts putting their finger on or thumb on the scales and helping another one, it has to be looked at, I think, more carefully. So that's those are the two main reasons. I don't think we need to, and I think they're coming anyway. Now, can I guarantee that? No, I can't guarantee that. But a contract has been signed, has been filed, and they've been said there's no opt-out. So, you know, on December the 14th, when we were hearing this for the first time, they were making their presentation, I asked for kind of a timeout. And the reason I asked for kind of a timeout to talk to just the council is because, you know, I've been in those courtrooms for 40 years. And I've done a lot of negotiating, and I just want to tell them, look, these guys are coming anyway, you just don't need to give it to them, because they're coming. And I may be wrong about that, but that's what I thought. We hired an outfit called Shabin, or however you pronounce it, to do a study here. Not only did the Stephenville rules, which some people may not like those rules, but they're the rules. It's been there since 1995 and it says, after unfair advantages, if the project meets the general criteria, and that's the general criteria, then you can consider it. According to this, we can't consider it if it gives an unfair advantage. Now, if you don't like the rule, we need to change them or something. Shabin, the study did, they have 5 initiatives, including mostly a big grocery store, and I don't see anything in there about restaurants. There's been some discussion about whether this is a rebate or an abatement or whatever. It doesn't make a difference what you call it. It's a tax advantage. So those are just my thoughts. I think it's unfair to the local businesses, and I think they're coming anyway, and I hope they do come, and I welcome them here, and I think that's about all I have to say about it.
Okay, any other discussion? Jerry?
Pat, the way I understood your interpretation, leveled out over the 7 years, it'd be 18,000 a year break, or whatever they call it.
On the average, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's based on 2.2 million. If the sales were less than that,
Right.
then it would be less than.
Well, to me, 18,000 a year, I can understand a perk to come here. I am all for development. But that's an unfair advantage to the people that are here now. $18,000 a year in a town this size, a restaurant, you're talking about 2.2 million. You're not talking about profit. You're talking about gross. And the profit margin, pretty small in there on a lot of restaurants. When you give 18,000 a year to these folks, that's a huge, to my way of thinking, it's too much. It's too much of an unfair advantage. That probably surprised you.
Any other comments?
Mayor, I've got a couple of things. One, and you touched on it earlier, our incentive program does not address what we're considering tonight. I've read it. It talks about, as you said, property tax, but I don't think there's anything in there about sales tax. Now, we've been advised by our legal counsel that it is acceptable for us to consider that, and I'm not going to dispute that, but it's my opinion that if we're going to consider that, we would be wise to address our policy before we agree to grant that to any entity, an existing or a new one that comes in. And I've had conversations with several existing that are really concerned about it, and as Jerry said, they consider it to be an unfair advantage to someone that comes in and has this available to them when there is not anything available to our existing businesses that have been here, have been paying their full share of sales and property tax. And I'm very uncomfortable with it because of that. I'm uncomfortable with the fact that we're trying to grant or offer to someone something that our policy, in my opinion, makes no provision for. Does that make it wrong? Not necessarily, but it still makes me uncomfortable with it. And based on that, and based on the fact that some of our local businesses are uncomfortable with it, then that makes it even less palatable to me to consider doing, and almost do it in their face that we don't care what you like. We want to do what we want to do, no matter what our policy requires or says. And I'm uncomfortable with that.
Okay, well, you're looking at me like you want me to respond.
No,
so-
sir, I'm just.
Well, I would like to just say one thing about your statement there. There was confusion as late as today where a business owner thought that it was a property tax rebate.
Mhm.
I mean, one of the reasons to have a policy in place is to eliminate confusion and to provide consistency. And the question of competitive advantage keeps coming up. What does it take for us to understand that Granbury is using our money to fix their roads? What does it take
Kenny,
for
I
us to
don't,
realize that?
I don't believe that's relevant.
Okay, well then, let me come back to the point then. The point about the policy. The luxury that a home rule council has is to provide for actions and ordinances based on the information that we have available. And a policy, whether a policy is in place or not, does not dictate the room that the council has to operate. The policy is intended to guide, and our policy does not address sales tax at all. I mean, I'll agree with you that the lack of policy is what has caused the community to have so much confusion about what it is that's being proposed.
I think you're correct.
And that's what's making this so hard. The fact that that opportunity is available for any business in Stephenville, Texas today is not understood, but it is available. Every business in Stephenville, Texas could do this today. Now, what I offered earlier tonight was to provide that at a lower rate, a lower standard than what we are doing for a new business. In other words, I think that we should ask the Finance Committee to bring us a policy back that gives an advantage to the local businesses to be able to do the same thing.
And I'll agree,
So-
that's a good step for future consideration, but it really doesn't help me tonight.
Well,
How would that help Greer's? I mean, for instance, or Restaurant Montana? I mean, how do they take advantage of this?
They make a decision to reinvest in their business, and the city would partner with them to do that.
Well, what if they're happy with it the way it is?
Then they don't have to.
So they just get a competitor that gets $18,000 a year advantage over. I mean, I just don't see it.
Okay,
Mayor, I'd be glad to address the fairness issue if you'd allow me.
that's fine. I'm just, yeah.
Right. It appears we have three on the council, which is much less than a majority, that aren't happy and say this is unfair. I've prepared some notes, and they're basically the same things and the same points that I made in the Finance Committee last Tuesday. And excuse me, I've got a sore throat today. This is 2016. We must compete or we die. The incentive program that began in 1995 was for businesses that were established after that point. If they were already in business, they didn't meet the criteria because they weren't a new business. Businesses that came in and established in Stephenville after 1995, this incentive program, and it does include sales tax rebates because I've read it from front to end, was available for them to apply and request whatever it is that they wanted to request. Now, as we work to try to attract business and grow the economic pie in Stephenville, Texas, we can't say that existing businesses are being penalized just because they didn't ask for or didn't qualify or this program came along before them. A fine example that I mentioned in Finance Committee is we're really wanting a bigger grocery store, maybe a third grocery store here in Stephenville, Texas. But if you use the fairness doctrine that these three gentlemen, my colleagues, have pushed, when they come to CETA or they come to the Stephenville City Council with a 380 agreement request, are the three of them still going to say, no, we've got two other grocery stores, it'd be unfair to them for us to approve an incentive? we lose our competitiveness doing that. This council has focused heavily on economic development for the last 2 years. We have talked the talk, now it's time to walk the walk. The people want more choices. The vacant Fiddle Creek building has generated zero in sales tax for the past several years. Now there's an opportunity to grow our economy. Years ago, and this is a good example, that a city council designated the area where the old Gibson's Discount Center building was as a tax reinvestment zone, as an incentive for someone to come in there and develop a big old vacant building to improve our economy and create jobs. The Dow family brought Ace Hardware into that building, renovated it, and filled a consumer demand. The 377 LLC group shares the values of this community. They're not a chain restaurant. They plan to invest a large sum of money to meet the demands of the consumers across the region, not just Stephenville, Comanche, Gustine, Morgan Mill, Hyco, all directions. By building a first of its kind concept restaurant here in our city, they see and fully understand that the location along Highway 377 has thousands of travelers every day passing through our city. And they're driving past a vacant building. They're eating in Brownwood, they're eating in Granbury, they're eating in Weatherford or Fort Worth. I believe that this concept restaurant comes in and we support it and partner it and actually use an incentive tool that is there and is available, and it's a smart business decision, that our economic pie grows as we're able to attract the new commerce that's currently untapped. In addition to these tourism dollars, the planned improvements to the property will, in my opinion, increase the city's portion of the ad valorem tax by at least $3,000 a year. Because last Tuesday night, in addition to the $500,000 in the agreement that this group, which has 2 local investors, are willing to spend, I believe there's another $350,000 that is also going to be spent on the property. So I'll round that up to $3,000. The incentive averaged $18,000. Minus the $3,000 is $15,000. Divide that by $52 a week. 52 weeks out of the year, it's less than $300 a week is what we're talking about here. It's a small amount, but yet the amount of sales tax generated by the HB group is rebated to them and it's small dollars, but it sends a big message to all the other businesses looking to come to Stephenville. My final comment is, what do you want the headlines in the media to say tomorrow? Thank you, Mayor.
All right, any other comments? Mr. Green.
I apologize for this being long, Alan. You know, if you weren't such a good friend, I wouldn't be able to say that to you. I want to give a little bit of, this issue has raised a lot of interest from our citizens, the news, members of this council. I'd like to give a little bit of review, if I could, from where we've come from and where I hope we end up at some point. I've been on council now for almost 5 years. When I attended my first budget hearing, there were 3 compelling issues that I said we had to address. The first one was why we were budgeting over $1 million less revenue from sales tax than we collected in any of the 3 years previous to that budget. The answer I got was, well, we're conservative. I didn't have a problem with being conservative, but the council debated right after that why we needed to raise taxes on our property taxes. What I discovered was our conservative approach to budgeting is merely more than a way of pooling dollars to make it easy to address a wish list later. It always made us look good because we were able to balance a budget. By the way, this year's wish list totals $26,149,000 as wishes. Many of these items matter of fact, most of the items are really important to the future of Stephenville. The problem is, we never plan on how we're going to get to those and get those things done. Second thing I asked was, why do we have so much debt? As of this year's budget, we are servicing a debt that when it was originated was $32 million. Currently outstanding debt is $21 million. We spend over $3 million a year to service debt. Some of it's tax supported, some of it's enterprise supported, which means your water and sewer and garbage prices go up. Additionally, for the first time in our history, we've had to declare an unfunded employee retirement plan, which is what you heard tonight during the audit of $3.7 million. Yes, for those in the media, that means we're upside down $3.7 million on our promises to employees. One night I had a great fortune to sit and have dinner with Dave and Sharon Ramsey, people who I have great respect for, and I was a brand new council member, so I asked the question, what on earth, what kind of advice can you give me being a city council member? And his answer was, stop borrowing money and learning to live on what you earn. I thought that was a pretty good advice. The third thing I'd ask was, what is our plan to get out of all this mess? Coming from a business perspective, and I manage a rather large business, I simply asked the question, do we even have a depreciation schedule for how we're going to replace capital improvements, trucks, fire trucks, buildings, etc.? And the answer was no. We just know what we need. We have a list. No business could ever succeed if they don't budget for the future. I want to thank Mayor Weldon because one of the first things he began doing immediately after being elected was pushing staff in this council to create a roadmap. This year, you have started to see some of that map coming together, and I highly encourage you in the media to talk with him about that because the map is becoming clearer all along. I can tell the citizens of this town that the history I just described will repeat itself very easily if this council and staff don't do our jobs. We have unmet needs in Stephenville that are massive. The mayor always says, let's eat one bite at a time. How many times has he told us that? My jaw is aching from all the chewing we're doing. We have the beginnings of a street pavement plan. It says we need to spend, Alan, what is it, $2.5 million per year to maintain the streets we have today.
That's just to maintain them.
That's
That's
just
not to improve them.
That's not to improve them.
Correct.
It is a $27.5 million need that's unmet. This year's budget has $100,000 in it to do that. Y'all hear that? $100,000 to do that. I do believe this council has emotionally committed to funding about $1 million of projects this summer out of unobligated funds. Well, what that means is we won't spend $1.5 million on identified needs of streets. That means by next year we'll have $4 million to spend on streets that we won't have because we spent $1 million of our reserve this year. We're going to be behind the curve. The 8 ball is big. We have a sewer problem. I remember my first council meeting, Nick Williams, who I've grown to respect tremendously, talked about the clay pipe. Did y'all hear that? Clay pipe that goes through the middle of Stephenville, Texas. He nearly scared me to death. That night I told Nick I'd work feverishly to help him fix that problem. With my friend Alan Nix's leadership and Nick's hard work, we're working on fixing the problem. I fear that if Tarleton completes their dormitory construction prior to us fixing this problem, that there's going to be a flush party at Tarleton some night, and there's going to be black water backing up into people's bathtubs that live north of Tarleton. The cost of that problem to fix it is $10.5 million. That's just problem one. We have an additional problem we're going to have to fix. It's $1.5 million. If we don't, we will have black water backing up into people's houses. We've already had that happen some. We've had it up here. We've talked about it here. If we're not diligent, if we don't come up with some other way to fix our problems, we're going to have to borrow our way out of this problem. We don't have the ability to do that. Our economy will not support that. With the leadership of the mayor, I keep giving that credit because he has done a tremendous job for this city. But also Stedco. How long has it been since we heard the word Stedco? Stedco specifically with Wendell Hollingsworth, they've begun a statewide hunt to get state dollars to take care of our infrastructure problems, that funding issue. And I think there's going to be some success there. I hope that we can have some announcements before too long. It's amazing the work that they're doing. We've sent a lot of tax money to Austin. It'd be nice to be able to get some of it back. But with $4.4 million in property taxes, $5.4 million in sales taxes, we can't do it. We can't meet the needs of Stephenville, Texas. I'm opposed to tax increases, period. I'm opposed to tax increases, period. So how can we get out of the mess? We can only be done the same way the federal government will have to get out of it, and that's grow our economy. We will not get out of the mess if we don't grow our economy. That means grow sales tax. We talked tonight, or heard tonight, a discussion about $16 million in sales going to other cities. I know it won't all stop. I know that. We need to build more homes. We need lots of businesses to come to town, and I'd love for another FMC to drop out of the sky. That would be great. And hopefully someday with the leadership from Stedco and the CETA and this council, we'll be able to do that. I have, as a lot of other council members on this, have received lots of calls from builders and their association over the last few months. One message that I heard loud and clear was, Stephenville is not a friendly place to develop. Y'all remember hearing that? I heard that over and over and over. We've heard stories in this council, phone calls, emails, about a gun manufacturer he wanted to build here, and he went to Breckenridge, I think. We've talked about HEB. How many stories have you heard about Lowe's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? All that comes back to, we have to be a city which is open for business. My proposal, in my opinion, has one purpose. Like the mayor said, and like we've heard from the pulpit today. We want to tell everybody outside and inside Stephenville, Texas city limits, Stephenville is open for business. Campaigning is easy. Governance is hard. And Mayor, with that, I call the question.
May I have one minute?
The question's been called.
I'll second that call.
In a second. Then we'll proceed to vote.
Roll call.
And the roll call has been asked for. So we'll proceed with the roll call and the secretary recording the vote. And let me remind the council of the motion and the second to approve Resolution 2016-R05, approving a Chapter 380 Economic Development Program and agreement with Highway 377 LLC, providing a severability clause and providing for an effective date. And we'll proceed with the roll call then. So place 1.
Aye.
Place 2.
No.
Place 3.
Aye.
Place 4.
Aye.
Place 5.
Yes.
Place 6.
No.
Place 7.
Aye.
Place 8.
No.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. Agenda item B. One part of our roadmap is going to demand that we, and by we I mean both the council and staff, create a plan for for capital expenses, hoping to reduce the amount of emergencies we seem to find over the time. The committee has passed out of the committee with full council the ordinance number 2016-002. If you look on page 16 of the agenda, it will talk to you, it will explain to you what the...
Mr. Savine,
yes.
just a moment. In my moment of standing up, I forgot to sit back down and tell the secretary that with the vote, if you could record the vote, which is 6-3, so the motion carries, approving ordinance or resolution 2016-R05. All right, thank you. Sorry.
Yes, sir. So what we have done is, at the request of the mayor, we addressed the issue of a capital improvement plan ordinance, which basically tells the city and the city council, city staff and city council that capital improvement expenses will be done as part of a plan and not part of just ongoing emergencies all the time. And it was passed with 100% vote of the committee. So with that, I make a motion that we pass ordinance 2016-002. It's found in your packet.
Mark, was that a second?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's moved by Mr. Savine, seconded by Mr. McClinton to approve ordinance 2016-02, establishing capital improvement plan ordinance. Any discussion?
Yeah, real quick, Mayor, I would, we discussed this a little bit the other night in the committee meeting, but I would like to be explained again how the community input is involved in this.
We're going to have, like you requested, it was a good idea to have some public input, particularly with each of the plan.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, but is there something structured?
We're going to have to create that structure, but yes, we will do that. I'll commit to you to do that.
A committee possibly, or is that too much?
Well, there were several recommendations on how to do that, public forums to do that in, and I think it'd be best we just get back together and come up with a plan, but yes, we will do that. I think what your comment was a good comment.
Either one or the other, I would like to see at least one public hearing if at all possible. And I'm not saying we have to go into a lot of detail, but I think we all agree that the public input is extremely important.
It is. It's a good comment. I forgot to mention that.
All right.
Make sure that Walt gets that in his minutes.
And there is an item in here on paragraph 4 that specifically calls out citizen input, so it's gonna drive us to do that.
Just the format will need to be a public.
Sure, the specifics.
Yeah.
It's a good question. We have a motion on the floor in a second.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of ordinance 2016-002, establishing capital improvement plan ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, that motion carries. Approving ordinance 2016-002, establishing a capital improvement plan ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. Item C is our annual review of our financial policy statements. And Walt's not here, so I'll try to defer answer any questions that might come up. This is a requirement that we do this annually as part of our requirements with the state of Texas. We reviewed those policies. You can find those starting on page 18 in your packet. And the committee recommended that we bring that to the council for adopting a resolution approving the investment strategy and the appointing officers, dealers, banks, and authorized representatives stated in the resolution. So moved, Mayor.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Mr. Savine, seconded by Ms. Zachary to approve Resolution 2016-R04, the annual review of financial policy statements and financial management policy and investment policy and adoption thereof. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries, unanimous vote. Item D.
Yes, sir. Last item we have requires no action. It was for information only. However, the state of Texas again requires that each year we compile the general fund financial information and we present it to the finance committee. It was presented last week by Walter and was, again, no action was required, just a formal, item that we have to do for the state of Texas. Mayor, that concludes the committee meeting.
Okay, I want to come back to the statement I made as we open this committee report, and I want the minutes to reflect, please, with council concurrence, a formal committee action to develop a sales tax policy and amendment to the economic development incentive package. Is that okay with everybody that we task the committee to do that?
Yes.
It is, and Walt
With the committee.
Walt has that on his agenda or on his notes for the next agenda item.
Okay. And again, the intent there that I'm requesting is that we look at a way to incentivize existing businesses with a policy that gives them an upper hand, so to speak, in a similar type request for tax incentive. All right, with that, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move approval of the entire consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Savine, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries, unanimous vote. I want to make sure that, just for the public's information, the consent agenda, there's a $350,000 pavement project that's going to be awarded as a result of this to start fixing the street. And this also is the second review of the policy procedures that will modify our future agendas for city council meetings to begin the evening with both the pledge and a prayer. So beginning in April, you'll see a different looking agenda item, and it'll include those moving forward.
Thank you, Red Harrison.
Yes, Mr. Harrison, thank you for your effort with that. All right, now, comments by the city administrator.
Right now, Mayor, all I've got is city offices will be closed March 25th in observance of Good Friday.
And council members? Mark?
I just want to second what was said earlier. Nick, thanks for all the work you did on the College Street Bridge. That was huge, so thank you for that.
Nothing further.
All right,
Mr. Nix would tell me I've said plenty tonight.
I think Mr. Nix would tell me the same.
all right.
I would say amen to both of those, but it's not my turn yet.
I do want to visit just a second or make some comments because Doug called the question, and my position on the sales tax rebate, I didn't have as much clarity as some other people. I had some concerns, I saw some benefits, and I don't have a problem telling everybody that I struggled to reach the vote that I did tonight, and I especially relate to the current restaurant owners or anybody else that is affected in a potential negative way with this, because I deal in the world of Obama economics, and I know it's difficult. But in the end, when I decided to run, and from the very beginning, I established a platform, and I decided that I would stick with that platform no matter what, or I would be, if the people elected me in that regard, that if I slipped from my platform and decided to go a different way, then I would be no different than a typical Washington, D.C. person. And I'm going to tell you, this was a very, very difficult decision, but I am glad that Hopper Hour is coming. So, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Nix?
I have one very important item to me. Today is what date? March 1st. It is my wife's birthday. I will relay her comment this morning, how special it is that the whole country calls her birthday Super Tuesday. All I need to say is happy birthday to her.
All right, good deal. Sure.
I'd like to repeat something that was said earlier regarding the bridge project and the, in my mind, absolutely incredible cost reduction that project went through, because a bunch of people worked really hard on it and asked questions. It's a really, really great example of the city department applying creativity to it, of the engineering company looking at it, but also of the questions getting asked in the beginning, that it just wasn't accepted. And that was, I think, just a huge accomplishment. As regards the Hofbrauer tax incentive thing, I do have some things to say about that. I think that Rhett's right. There's an elephant we're hunting out there, which is a big manufacturer. We have to bear in mind that a manufacturer coming in that we're going to incentivize is going to go into competition with St. Gobain, with FMC, and with all these other places, not necessarily directly on a head-to-head basis, because it'll be different products, but they're going to go into labor competition with those companies. And the new jobs that come in. If we get another, say, 100 new jobs that come in, there will be not just 100 new jobs created, but the way it works is there will be a lot of job shuffling because people will go apply, and it will increase greatly or to a lesser extent the wages that get paid for those sorts of jobs. Well, it works somewhat the same way in the smaller business sector. And while we wait for the elephant to walk through our pathway, I'm afraid if we overlook smaller projects like Hofbrauer, which is bringing 20 equivalent, what is the word? I forget the full-time equivalent jobs. We have to bear in mind that that same kind of shuffling takes place. People will go apply, 20 more jobs will open up somewhere else, and people will have to pay more. I've experienced this in my 30 years of Stephenville being here. As soon as someplace new opens up, you end up, wanting to raise your current employees some so that they don't go off and apply. Sometimes they go anyway. But all in all, the people themselves, the population of the entire town benefits because you have increased that little bit the wealth. I'd like to point out that while we wait for the elephant that's going to provide the 200 jobs or whatever, that you can also grow it the same way by having 10 smaller businesses come in that each bring 20 jobs. And that is another way to grow your economic base. Further like to point out that Granbury has reduced their property taxes the last several years because their sales taxes grew so greatly. So there is benefit again for all citizens when we grow economically. There is Doug is absolutely right. If we don't start trying to grow our way out of where we're at, then we're going to stagnate. We're not going to be able to fix the things we need to fix, and our city isn't going to grow. So we have to be forward thinking on those items. And I'm sorry, I've probably taken up too much time, so I apologize for the rambling. But now I'm done.
All right, thank you. Jerry?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear since some of us got cut off on comments on the tax incentive for 377. I'm not against an incentive. I'm for it, but not for the amount that it is. That was my objection to it. I think it's excessive, and we got voted down, but I'm good with that. If that's what the majority wants. I've got no beef with it, but I still think it's excessive over the 18,000 over the 7-year period. That's all.
Mayor, I just remembered a big event in my family. Can I share it just a second?
Okay.
I'm so involved in tonight's meeting. I'd like everyone to know out there in TV land and attending here tonight that Saturday night, my family gained a grandbaby. Eric Everett Owen McKeel, 8 pounds and 5 ounces, was born in Waco, Texas. So my life has changed forever, and now I am known as Paw Paw.
Right.
Thank you.
There we go.
And thankfully,
All right, thanks, Paw Paw.
All right, let me get my looks.
I just got a couple of things I want to say briefly before we move to executive session. I want to thank the council. I want to thank the staff. I want to thank the citizens for your input in this very important night in the city of Stephenville. This is, I have said from the very beginning, and y'all help the council make this a reality. Our competition is not within our city limits. Our competition is Granbury, Brownwood, Weatherford, Cleburne, and we're the city of champions, and they better take notice because we know what it means to win. And we're about to win in a way that is going to blow them away. And I want to thank the council for the debate on this issue and the discussion, because we as a body are maturing in a role that this city expects of us, and that is, whether we like it or not, we were placed on a team. And teams learn how to work together, or they leave the team. And it's really important that we share our differences, we understand our perspectives, but at the end of the day, when we walk out of this room, we are a team. Because we are competing with Granbury and Cleburne and Weatherford and Brownwood. And I want us to beat them big time. Ever since I walked off the field at Gordon Wood Stadium, and the score was 36-6, and I still remember being on the short end, and I will remember that to my grave. So we are we're well on the way of doing that, but we've got a lot of learning to do, and I think patience is in order, and persistence, and we will complete the wall. I'll just say that. The second thing I want to say is thank you to the council for what I think is maybe more important than the decision about the incentive, and that is to approve a capital improvement program for this city. When you don't have enough money to take care of what you need, it is critically important to prioritize those needs in a comprehensive way. And tonight, the city council made a decision to require of the city staff to prioritize our needs so that we take care of worst first. It's no longer who do you know, it's what's the greatest need. And it's also a way for us to understand how we can invest wisely and be stewards of tax dollars. So that decision was more about stewardship and responsibility to the citizens in a very important way, and I want to thank y'all for that. And now the work is just beginning, because we've got to put a plan together that will accommodate that. And I just want to just close and thank y'all for attending tonight, those that have been here. The last point I want to make is that I am dead serious about us having an incentive policy that supports local business. Let's don't forget that there's two pieces to this equation. There's attraction and there's also retention. And we owe it to businesses that have chosen to call Stephenville their home before tonight to provide similar opportunities for them to be successful in our community and grow and be successful as we move forward and see our community continue to grow. So thank you to the council, thank you for the staff, and thank you to the citizens. And with that, I'll call us into executive session in compliance with Vernon Tax Code, Section 551-0718, consultation with attorney.
No, I do have to get something else.